Punchboard Media,
where we all
bring something
to the table.
Pull up a chair
at punchboardmedia.com.
So we are here at Origins 2019, and we are looking at The Few and Cursed with Mike Gannade of Rock Manor Games. So tell us a little bit about this game and where the story came from.
Well, the story came from an independent series of comics by Felipe Cagno and Fabiano Neves. So we have some of the comics here holding the board flat. So yeah, we got connected on Kickstarter and started collaborating together. He let Red be a promo character in one of our earlier games, and we just kept the conversation going and got along with each other, and this game evolved out of that. So it's based on the comic books, which is sort of an action. He describes the comic books as sort of Buffy the Vampire Slayer meets like the Wild West, because in the world all the water has evaporated because of a supernatural event, and sort of the supernaturals become real. So in the world of The Few and Cursed, there are vampires and werewolves and monsters and things like that. So that's sort of where those two things are melded together. So we modeled the game sort of after the comic books. We've tried to make it sort of action-packed with very little downtime, and to be sort of adventuring and quick and easy to play.
Awesome. And how does the game, a general overview of how the game works?
Sure. I'll sort of go over some of the key mechanics. I think that's probably makes the most sense for people who are interested in it. So you'll see that you have the characters here starting in town. That's the town is in the San Andreas Vault of the Pacific Ocean. So in this game, you'll be exploring the Pacific Ocean as part of your adventure. It is a deck builder, but you'll notice that there's no market of cards that you're purchasing with your resources. And since we're curse-chasing bounty hunters, we improvise every turn. So you'll draw 2 cards. Here, those are the same ones because we didn't shuffle after last night. So you'll draw 2 cards, and you'll immediately add one of these to your hand and discard the other. So your hand instantly gets better. You can start using the more powerful cards in your turn. You'll spend these cards sort of like panels of a comic book to move and shoot things and generate these resources, and you'll move your piece around the board, paying these things as you move around. And then you're going to take 1 action per turn to try to increase your grit and your reputation as a curse chaser, because your goal is to be the most infamous or famous curse chaser that's around. So you can do that by capturing bounties, by generating attack, and getting to the right location to capture them. There's always the generic enemies to fight. There's also jobs you can work on completing. So if we want to flip over those, you can always work on these sort of secret jobs. And then you can also acquire relics that'll be in the corners. So if you can make your way and travel all the way to these corner locations, the art's not finished for these, we just have the inking done, but you can get really powerful cards, which again, you pick up as your action and put directly in your hand. So you can use things immediately. There's a lot of immediacy in the game. And while you're out adventuring, of course, we use a lot of the lore of the comics in our encounter cards. So we've got these sort of grand set piece encounters that we call cursed encounters with the art pieces, and then we have a lot of storytelling with just our generic encounters, which each card has like 3 different things. And you guys played last night, so you saw that when you're in a certain location, you only activate 1. So there's a lot of replayability in this deck, because depending on how it's shuffled and where you are when you draw the particular card, you're going to get something completely different. So that's a quick overview. There's obviously a lot of character customization on the boards, so every character is different and asymmetrical. They all have different strengths and weaknesses. And as you're out adventuring and you go back to town, you can spend money to hold more bullets, purchase more bullets. You can increase your curse threshold. Your curse, obviously, there's some push your luck with curse, where if you push it too far, your character will become cursed and you'll flip your card over. And then obviously, if you take too much damage and reach to 0, there's no player elimination, because that's never fun in games. So you become critically wounded, and a good Samaritan drags you back to town, and you've got to pay them for your efforts. And you lose some of your reputation when you're a curse chaser and they knock you out.
And then every character's deck is different, their starting deck, I should
Correct,
say?
that's right. So every character has their own unique character card and their own starting deck. So, Jebediah's starting deck is actually smaller, and when he becomes cursed, he actually becomes a ghost that's wandering the desert, and he has a hard time getting back to town. So that's sort of a risk he can run. Every character has some curse in their deck, but they also, have a different variety of movement and attack. So, Jebediah is sort of like the jack of all trades. He's got these cards that have both resources on them, which a lot of the starting characters don't have. But he has less cards, and every time you shuffle your deck, the thickness of your deck sort of represents how much experience you have and how long you can last in the desert without getting tired. So if your deck's too small, you'll be constantly returning to San Andreas, and you're going to be able to complete the actions you want to complete.
So unlike most deck builders, this is kind of one where you kind of want a thicker deck to be able to do more actions that you really want to get out and do.
Yeah, I mean, I've played a bunch of deck builders. It's like, I would say it's what got me into game designing. Like, every major deck builder that's out there, I've played. I've bought them all. I bought expansions. And I like playing with, I've seen so many people play deck builders, and the two most popular strategies in deck builders is trashing and drawing. So this game messes with those sort of min-max players who do that strategy a little bit. I mean, it's still viable, but if you ever at the point where you've played your entire deck and it's so small and you need to draw cards and you can't, you actually are going to start taking damage. So if you do an extreme strategy like that too much, it can backfire. But again, playing a lot of cards is still strong, in a deck builder. So it's something to be cautious about, but it's, I like to play with people's expectations of like the strategies in other deck builders. So it's not something I would necessarily recommend. I wouldn't go for like mad card draw and mad trashing in this game.
And all the artwork is actually unique?
Correct, yeah. So the author of the comic was actually the creative director for this, so it was great for me to focus on design and not have to worry about the whole production process for the game. So he hired all of the artists that he's used for his comic book. There's a lot of artists who draw for DC Comics and Marvel Comics in here. I think we have something like over 100 unique pieces of art or something like that, original art for the game. And we use the same graphic designer from the comic book and the letterer to do like all these boards and everything with these nice wooden silhouettes. And it was one of those things where like he comes from a comic book background, so the first few revisions of like the board and the comic, I had to give him a lot of direction and sort of point him in the right way. But once we sort of were like, you nailed it, then then everything else became faster because he sort of knew what was important, and it went really smoothly after that.
So this is on Kickstarter right now.
It is, yeah. So by the time this video is up, there'll probably be about 2 weeks left. So we're sort of right in the middle, which is nice because, as people know, Kickstarter is very stressful at the beginning, that first week.
Definitely.
But then in the middle, there's sort of a lull and a slump. So it was a good timing for us to come out here to Origins, get people playing the game, because we've got some events set up and stuff. So people here can, if they have a ticket to it, they'll be playing it this weekend.
And people might be interested in just the comic book. Isn't that on Kickstarter as well?
Yeah, so the comic book is finishing up the first storyline about the Crows of Mana Olana, which started, I guess, 2 or 3 years ago, is wrapping up. So if you wanted to wait to read the whole complete story and miniseries, that's the 6th issue is getting kickstarted right now on Kickstarter as well. Don't forget to pick up the Chronicles of the Few and Cursed. It's like a huge book full of stories that was actually it's a bunch of short stories, and it actually expands the world a lot more. And Felipe actually started writing that comic book when we knew we were doing a game, because the miniseries just focuses on the redhead, and in a board game you need more than one character. So he used the Chronicles to really expand the world and start telling stories about Persia and other areas of the world other than just like Mana Olana and the Crows. So it's my personal favorite because, because of this collaboration, that sort of came about, and it's a bigger book with a lot more stories in it. So that's my favorite personally.
That's pretty awesome. Yeah, I did get a chance to play this last night. I did horribly, but that's just on me. It wasn't. I was actually playing the redhead, and this was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed the deck builder and the kind of slightly Clank kind of feel.
Yeah. There's definitely some Clank movement going on for sure.
But yeah, I really enjoy this. I would actually recommend backing this. I'm actually backing this game because I really liked it.
Good,
you sold me on it already, even before we talked today.
Good. I felt bad because you had that huge penalty where you just didn't finish any of your jobs, and he was doing fine until the end.
I had one job finished.
Yeah.
But that didn't really help.
Yeah, it didn't matter. But everyone was so close, and then when we did the final scoring, 2 people stayed close, and 1 person
Yeah, I just was way behind.
forgot about the jobs.
But thank you for talking to us, and best of luck with the rest of the
No, I
Kickstarter
appreciate,
campaign.
we always, when you're a small little shrimpy indie publisher like me, it's great to get the word out there. It's always a challenge, in the vast ocean of the tabletop industry, to just get coverage. And I really appreciate you guys taking the time to not only play the game, but then film this video afterwards. And I appreciate it a lot. So thank you.
So definitely, if you're at Origins and you see this game, definitely come and play it. You will most likely back it after you've played it. And that's all.
Thank you, guys.